Mackey, one of our two pit lane reporters for today's race, is standing by now with a man who personifies both.
And that man is Willie T. Ribbs. Here at the last race of the season, the fastest qualifier on the pole, Willie. But the point here is that the man alongside of you has been described as your arch rival, Scott Pruitt. Over the years, you've done more than rub fenders with Scott Pruitt. What's it going to be like in turn one?
Well, you're talking about one of the greatest rivalries in auto racing history. That's no light statement. That's real. So, you know, we've both been going hard. We've both been winning. And he's going to IndyCar race, and I'm going to GTP. So we're going to square off here in another GTO race. And the objective is to keep it clean. You know, you want to race. You can only win when you finish. So we're going to, you know, it's a tight place. It's so tight here you need Vaseline.
Well, Willie, I'm looking at your car. It's beautiful. There's no dents in it. It's going to look like this when the race is over?
We hope so.
Okay, thanks very much, Willie Ribbs. And now, across the front row to my colleague, Ralph Sheehan.
On the other side of the starting row is the series champion for 1988 in the Camel GTO series, Scott Pruitt. And Scott, these two teams have been going at each other hammer and tong all season long. This is the final race for both the Mercurs and the Toyotas. I got a funny feeling you're looking to put yourself on victory circle today, and one last shot at your arch rival, Willie T, across the way.
Well, you want to give it all you have. I mean, everybody's done so much work all season long to get to this course. Everybody at Roush, everybody at Stroh, Lincoln Mercury, and of course Mac Tool. And this is really the finale for us. The pressure's off, the championship's won, both the drivers and the manufacturers, so we're just going to go out and give it all I got.
Well, as you can see, both of the front row guys are ready to go at it for one last time. Let's go back up to the booth and Bob Varsha.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. The course is 1.62 miles, 10 turns, and it is very treacherous. These drivers have more than just each other to battle. They also have to take on a very difficult race course here in Del Mar. Back at Del Mar, California, on a temporary circuit built around the parking lots of the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Bob Varsha and Bill Adam with you, Chris Economaki and Ralph Shaheen on pit road for what we expect will be an action-packed hour of GTO racing. Here's the way the cars will line up to take the green flag here at Del Mar. On the pole, the first time anything other than a Lincoln Mercury product has it, give it to Willie T. Ribbs in a Toyota Celica Turbo. To his left will be newly crowned series champion Scott Pruitt in an XR4 Ti. Inside row 2, the winningest driver on the series this year, Pete Halsmer in an XR4 Ti with 3 victories. Next to him, Greg Pickett in a Chevy Corvette, still looking for his first victory of the year. Inside row 3 will be Dennis Ossie, Willie T's teammate in another Toyota Celica with 2 victories this year, alongside another double winner, Wally Dallenbach Jr. in a Corvette. Inside row 4 will be Parnelli Jones's kid, PJ, all of 19 years old and a sprint car champion, today in a Mazda RX-7, alongside Pikes Peak veteran Perry and Henry in a Firebird. Row 5 will be Bob Patch in a Corvette, alongside the Camaro of former boat racer Russ Romer. Row 6 will see Resnowicki in a Chevy Camaro, alongside Chuck Kendall, father of GTU champion Tom Kendall. Row 7 will be Charlie Gedicke in a Porsche Carrera, alongside the Mercury Capri of Vic Manuelli. And in row 8 will be Craig Gustafson, another reformed boat racer out here on 4 wheels today, alongside the Chevy Camaro of Andy Porterfield. We've mentioned the course here in Del Mar is 1.62 miles around with 10 turns. Very, very difficult. Lots of drivers talking about just how slippery it is. To give you a closer look of what it looks like from a driver's perspective, let's take a look at the course with Bill Adam.
Down the front straight at Del Mar, we're at 125 miles an hour in 5th gear, approaching a great heavy braking area into a 90-degree first turn. Look at this, just feed it on through here. Little power, but it gets slippery up against a wall. 45-degree bend to the left, and really want to stay set up for this corner. A tight hairpin where we're all the way back down at first gear. Difficult getting on the power here. The car really wants to slide, and facing us are high-speed S's. Deceptive. They look very easy, but the car really wants to skate across the pavement. Through here in a nice little straight that leads up to a second very good area for braking. And facing us immediately is a real series of wiggles. Just a little flick here to the left, to the right, back to the left again, and another right facing us as we enter a back straight. This back straight sets us up for another fast 5th gear area right all the way down here, and a really quick 4th gear corner facing us up ahead. The car slides through here, a long, sustained power slide, but you've got to stay set up well for the next corner, 180-degree left-hand bend. Look at this, just tucking real tight on the inside here and feeding out of that into a 45 right. Pull the car back over to the right. Now we've got a 90 to the left. That feeds us down another very brief state. Little stab on the brakes here and get set up for another one of these wiggles. Little right, little left, and then back to the right again. But watch all those walls. You can really make a mess of your car. Power slide out on the pit straight. This is going to complete our lap at the Del Mar Grand Prix.
Well, you've seen it from the outside. Now here is what it will look like from the inside. You're in with Mr. Excitement. Willie T. Ribbs will be driving the Toyota Celica Turbo with our onboard camera today. Bill, we've been getting some great shots out of this camera in practice.
Well, I think this is the type of shot that Willie would like to see all race long until he comes up to lap traffic. But the start's going to be very interesting. We've got a pair of turbo cars on the front row, and yet Greg Pickett sitting back in fourth place. What he will try and do is to slot himself up as far as he can, and if he can possibly split those leading two cars. He does have a chance. The first corner that he'll be facing is a right-hander, but then the second is a left. And all he has to do is stay in position around that first one, and then he's on the inside for the next two turns. That's where you want to be.
The pace car is off. 450 horsepower, Willie T. Ribbs. 600 horsepower, Scott Pruitt. The green flag waves. Give it to Pruitt as they head down to the corner. Pete Halsmer to the left of your screen. Wants to take a shot to the inside. He's got it.
A sensational start. Halsmer was well up on boost and had really good traction. The turbos have been having a problem with traction. He had nothing there. It was all hooked up.
Great driving by Pete Halsmer, coming from third to second behind teammate Scott Pruitt. And Willie T. Ribbs now gets passed by one of the Corvettes, and it looks like the other one's going to get him as well. Willie T. Ribbs having all kinds of trouble getting his power to the ground, drops back to fifth position behind both of the XR4TIs. Greg Pickett in the number 2 Corvette right there in the center of your picture. Behind him, Wally Dallenbach in the number 5 Chevy, and then Willie T. in a Toyota.
Yeah, Greg has been talked about as being the designated hitter of the Chevrolet team, but it's much more important for Dallenbach to get a really strong finish, and Greg go out and try and challenge and hopefully break the other cars. That's what he wants to try and do. Push them as hard as possible, really stress them. But the Mercurs, look at this, very, very strong lead with a little bit of spark coming off the front end. Not dangerous. We watched it all the way through practice, and this is just racing on the front. It's dragging on the ground.
Now you're back with the leader, Scott Pruitt of the number 11 car. You saw some of those sparks flying. These cars are heavier. We mentioned 450 horses for the Toyota, 700 for the Mercurs, for the XR4TIs. Here comes Willie once more from our in-car camera, and he is not going to want to put up with this situation for long. Look at him go up through that gearbox, down the front straightaway, across the start-finish line. A teammate at his elbow, Willie T. Ribbs on the right, Dennis Ossie on the left. Looks like Ossie, who's normally a fairly conservative performer, thinks that his teammate Willie's having a problem, and here is a big problem.
There's a
car number 51 is Andy Porterfield. I can't make out a number on the machine that he has tangled with, but that is blocking the racetrack, and it's going to cause big problems. I think that's the number 44 car of Russ Romer, and Romer is back underway, but Andy Porterfield, number 51, is dead on the racetrack there.
And there's a third car that's been involved way up in the far end of that picture. The Mercury Capri is pulled off into an area.
At the far end, I think it was Vic Manueli out of Sierra Madre, California, in his Capri. Now, here are the leaders. This is Scott Pruitt. He'll be coming up on the scene of that accident very shortly. It's in the turn 9 and 10 complex, I think, just before they reach the start-finish line.
Yeah, extremely tight area. Now we can see, look at the marks in the pavement. Pruitt just ran over something. That's something we'll have to watch out for and see if he runs into a tire problem.
Saw a lot of debris there on the racetrack, and he clipped it with his left front corner. There's his teammate Halsmer in the number 6 car, closing the gap a little bit behind Greg Pickett with the orange dot on the windshield of his Corvette to distinguish it from the sister car, number 5, driven by Dallenbach. You see that we have paired off the 2 XR4TIs up front, followed by the 2 Corvette teammates, and in 5th and 6th position are the 2 Toyotas. Now, Willie T. has made his way by his teammate. He's going to start pulling in on the Corvette of Wally Dallenbach. And Bill, as they pull on one of the faster parts of the race course, here we're going to get a good idea of the Toyota's turbo power as opposed to the 5.5-liter V8 that Dallenbach has on the hood of the Corvette.
Well, we just watched him go through all the gears there in the space of just a couple of seconds. He was exiting that corner in first gear because with the Toyotas having a smaller engine, they have to rev higher to get back up on boost as quickly as possible. But look at how quickly he's shifting here, just immediately through the gears. There's up into 4th. Just a quick shot, 5th down here.
Slower
now back to 4th. He's going through this very, very quick, long left-hander. And here, catching right up on the tail of the Corvette. It's a real, real run at it.
They've really bunched up now. You're looking at Pickett and Dallenbach and Ribbs running nose to tail. And this is going to be a real skirmish as they head into one of the tight parts of the course before they get onto that tactical front straightaway. Now, Willie T. with the turbo car, I would imagine, is going to want to get it spooled up in time to get on that straightaway with good speed.
Yeah, exactly. We'll watch here and see the Corvettes pull away. They're getting 2 or 3 lengths lead as soon as they jump on the gas. like Toyota does take a little bit of time for the turbo. Watch Willie. He's going to choose one of the areas of real heavy braking, probably right here, entering into turn 1. And you can see, as the Corvettes went through, they both got really sideways. They're overheating their rear tires right now, trying to stay in front of Willie. I think the guy that we can also watch is behind Willie, the number 98 of Dennis Ozzie. Very smooth in Toyota. I think he may be a challenger as the race goes on and the track conditions deteriorate.
Last year there were 3 cars in this race. Ozzie clipped Willie T's car and broke a front, actually flattened a front tire, and there goes a pylon. Let me get caught up here. Those pylons replace some of these 8,000-pound concrete barriers to give the drivers a little bit more freedom, a little more confidence, let them see a little farther. And as you can see, Willie T used the entire racetrack, flipped one of them up into the air.
Yeah, that's good that he's able to clip a pylon and continue, whereas if he'd taken a shot at a concrete barrier, he'd be out of the race right now.
As I was saying earlier, a year ago, Ozzie and Willie came together, flattened a tire on Willie's car, and he had to do everything in his power. As you see, Ozzie getting way sideways in the 98 car. Willie had to come back through the field to finish a fine 3rd place in that race. Chris Cord, his teammate, won the race and clinched the manufacturer's title for Toyota just 1 year ago here at Del Mar. But right now, we've got a great 4-way skirmish on the racetrack.
I think, too, oh, no, you're going to see him. He's challenging up the inside, and watch, Wally's going to pull over as far as he can. And there's going to be contact going into 1, but he's safely passed.
And Wally gets it dirt tracking sideways. Here comes Ozzie.
Oh, he hits Dennis Ozzie.
I'm sure Wally didn't see Ozzie coming up on his right, trying to slip through behind teammate Willie T. Ribs. Dennis Ozzie goes into the wall and a shower of sparks.
That will put him out. He will break the right front suspension on that sort of an impact. Exactly. Wally did not know he was there and tried to pull back over to get a wider run into turn 2.
Tough break there for Dennis Ozzie out of Orange, California, 45-year-old racer. Been with Dan Gurney and Team Toyota for a long, long time. He will go along with Willie T. Ribs and Chris Cord into a GT prototype program for next year. Let's take another look now at what happened.
Now look at this as Dennis tries to slot on the outside. Wally is going hard left to right and just no place to go. Ozzie is forced into the concrete wall, a very hard impact in the right front.
This ain't Watkins Glen, folks. There's no grass to run these cars off onto. Nothing but 8,000-pound concrete barriers and tire walls. Very unforgiving race course here at Del Mar. Dennis Ozzie, one of the first of the front runners to drop out of the race. Now, meanwhile, things have been nothing but roses for this guy, newly crowned series champion Scott Pruitt out of Roseville, California, appropriately. Scotty, whom most race fans know, has been tabbed to take over for Bobby Rahal in a True Sports Indy car next year. And we'll be back for more action from Del Mar, California, after these important words. Del Mar, California, in the IMSA GTO Championship, sparks fly from the car of the series champion Scott Pruitt, number 11. He leads over teammate Pete Hallsberg. Greg Pickett runs 3rd in a Corvette, followed by Willie T. Ribs in a Toyota Celica Turbo, and P.J. Jones, the 19-year-old son of Parnelli Jones, driving in a Mazda XR7. Things have been going well for Scott Pruitt. He leads by about 7 seconds, but 1 year ago, he was leading by well over that when he clipped one of these unforgiving concrete walls, broke a suspension part, and dropped out of the race. So Scott Pruitt well knows that he has to keep that car between the barriers from start to finish if he's to have any hope of winding up 1988 on a winning note. Now we're back inside Willie T's car as he comes up behind Pete Hallsberg, and Willie T has come back from 5th position early in this race to challenge Pete Hallsberg for 2nd. Great battle here coming out of this right-hander. They're onto the fastest part of the racetrack. They call it a straightaway. Really isn't. It's about 2,000 feet long, and it curves gently to the left, and it takes real courage to go right up against those pylons with your foot flat to the floor.
Now watch Willie shifting here. He's back in 1st gear right now, going around his Type 180. Just watch when he comes out. There's 2nd, there's 3rd. That fast, he's going through it, just immediately through the gears. Partly because the car is accelerating very quickly, but they're getting a lot of wheel spin in these cars because of this slippery surface. Very, very tiring and very difficult to do it consistently, lap after lap.
Pretty hard to overstate the job these drivers are doing, considering the dangers posed by the concrete walls on either side. This is not your normal street course, which is exactly as it sounds, uses city streets to develop a racing surface. These are parking lots here at the Del Mar Fairgrounds racetrack, and so they are not used as heavily as city streets. It is a very green racetrack, as the racers say, and they had a mere 90 minutes of practice and qualifying to get ready for this racetrack. Once again, inside Willie T. Ribs' car as he tries to close up on the Merkur XR4 Ti of Pete Hallsberg.
There we go, down to third, and then immediately all the way down to first. Willie skips second here on his downshift. Quite interesting to watch. There's second, there's third. Through these little S's, up to fourth. Full throttle up through here. There's fifth gear. Now, he'll just touch the brakes up ahead there. Drop into fourth gear as he goes through this long, long fast bend. Look at him fight the wheel. Really sliding, tries to get right out wide. What he's doing there, he's placing the car in Hallsberg's mirror. Wants to upset Pete's concentration just that tiny little bit.
Boy, you saw just how close Hallsberg got to that concrete wall in front of him. These guys using every inch of the racetrack. And there is the battle going on for second place. The number 6, Pete Hallsberg out of Anaheim, California, doing his best to hold off the pride of San Jose, California, Willie T. Ribbs.
And really impressive again. Both these drivers are turbocharged. Now look at Willie. He's going to come up and just say, Peter, here I come. And Hallsberg let him by. Very surprised. Hallsberg will without doubt be in radio contact with his pits, and he will have been advised that Wally Dallenbach, his chief competitor for second place in the GTO division for the entire season, did make a pit stop. So that may affect Pete's judgment during the race as well.
I would imagine with the money available for second place, he's going to want to step up into that position ahead of Dallenbach. And so now he's being very careful. Let Willie T go by. And while these guys have been battling, Scott Pruitt has been able to open up the lead to almost 8 seconds now over Willie T. Ribbs and Hallsberg in your picture there. Willie once again onto the fast part of the racetrack with Hallsberg in hot pursuit. The mechanical differences between these cars are fairly enormous. Scott Pruitt, 28 years old. He has won 4 sedan racing titles in 3 years before he moves on to the Indy cars, once known as Mr. Kart for his dozen or so national karting championships. Now, I'm not talking about go-karts. I'm talking about 160-mile-an-hour karts with 6-speed gearboxes and the like. Can you imagine going around the high banks of Daytona on your back a fraction of an inch off the ground?
No, I can't. I don't want to.
My goodness. Nevertheless, Scott did it for about 14 years, at which point Jack Roush said, hey, that's enough of that for you. Why don't you come up and race a big car? And now we've got a pit stop. There's the number 6 car, Pete Hallsberg, in the pits.
Look at the left front wheel, too.
He has used up that rubber. Front tires going on. This is a little unusual. We would expect to see them go to one side of the car and change both tires on the same side. Now it looks like they're going to work on the rear ones as well. I was a little surprised they would just change front tires.
I think his day is finished. Look at that suspension. It's hanging down. It's not just a tire problem. That suspension, something is broken.
Big problem down there for Pete Hallsberg out of Anaheim, and we hope it's not something that's chronic on these XR4 TIs that might affect Scott Pruitt's car up front.
Boy, there goes the second place is gone for Peter.
Big disappointment for Pete Hallsberg out of Anaheim, California, 44 years old, a man who has driven Indy cars, stock cars, any kind of cars you choose to name. In fact, he gave these XR4 TIs their very first victory in professional racing competition. And now we're back inside with Willie T again with clean racetrack in front of him.
That's a bit of a luxury. Normally the street courses are just so difficult to drive with all the GTO cars and usually GTU cars right in the middle. So Willie can have good fun here. Each lap is almost like a qualifying lap. They're out there all by themselves and they can just flail away at this car. And there's nothing more that he likes is just to use up the car. I think the car up ahead as we're watching, I believe it looks like that is the Mercure immediately ahead.
Willie T, note the small steering wheel, all the gauges and the wires flapping around in there. He almost looks like a space shuttle in flight as things float around in the car as though weightless.
Yeah, that is going to be Pruitt immediately ahead of Willie T. So this is going to give him at it. Yeah, look at that now. He is definitely closing in a hurry. Look at how much roadway that Willie used up exiting that corner. And I don't think that Pruitt has slowed down that much. I think Willie is just simply flying at this point.
Willie T. Ribbs, one of the best street racers, has now closed in from more than 7 seconds down to less than 3 behind the leader, Scott Pruitt. So we've got a humdinger going here at Del Mar. And we're going to take a short time out right now as the race settles down slightly. Plenty of hot GTO racing coming at you from Del Mar, California, when we return in just a moment. Back at Del Mar and back inside the Toyota Celica Turbo with Willie T. Ribbs as your chauffeur. You see his left thumb punching the button there as he talks to his pits on radio and cranks those arms over to try to keep control of that car on this very narrow part of the race course, only about 35 feet wide at this point. And some of the racers have been saying, hey, this thing is only about room for half a car back there in that chicane.
You watch Willie shift, it's almost like he's angry with the car. He just bangs the lever around and doesn't want to waste any time, doesn't want to be gentle with it.
Now this is the car number 11, the XR4 TI turbocharged machine of Scott Pruitt out of Roseville, California. Little bits of the body striking the ground and setting up a shower of sparks. Here comes Willie T. Ribbs. They are barely 3 seconds apart. The battle is for first and second. Greg Pickett in a Corvette is now third. Wally Dallenbach fourth in another Corvette. P.J. Jones is fifth. Bob Patch has his Corvette in sixth position. Once more, Willie T. Ribbs down the front straightaway into turn one. All of that white stuff you see on the ground is lime that was laid down on the course this morning to absorb some of the moisture and try to help these cars get a little bit of grip on this very, very slippery racetrack.
Well, it's interesting, Bob. I just took a timing on Willie, and he is running at a pace that he qualified at. Very, very fast. And even with other traffic out here and his tires going away, he's on record pace, just flying around this track.
I think I saw Steve Resnowicki there just a moment ago stick his arm out as though to tell Willie T to pass on the left. He's got to keep that arm in, just stay over on the right, and know that Willie T will go to the left. Otherwise, you may lose a finger.
That's right.
Willie T. Ribbs down through that sweeping left-hander with the pylons on his left. Now you're back to number 11, your leader, Scott Pruitt. We'll take a look at the gap, and now you see that Scott Pruitt has opened up that gap just a little bit. Now, we weren't fooling early in this show when we said that we expected a battle between Pruitt and Ribbs. These guys have had a series of celebrated coming-togethers. In fact, at one point, tempers flared, and there was an actual fist fight between these two guys about a year ago. Before the race, we asked Willie T. how the feelings stand now between himself and Scott Pruitt.
Blue sky. Blue sky. There's no problem. Scott and I, you know, he wants to win, I want to win, Wally wants to win, everybody who's in the championship wants to win. You know, he got a great deal coming on, going into a car team, and I got a great deal with a big manufacturer named Toyota, and then going to go GTP. So we're moving forward, you know.
Moving forward indeed. Willie T. Ribbs will be driving Toyota GTP cars on the Camel GT circuit next year, along with Juan Manuel Fangio II and Dennis Ossie and Chris Ford. Scott Pruitt moves up to take Bobby Rahal's seat in the True Sports Lola on the IndyCar Series. It's a great step forward for two of America's best young sedan drivers.
Yeah, it's a shame we're losing a couple of really great, fun competitors, both spectacular to watch. Great deal of ability in both drivers, and it's good for their career advancement they're going on, but I'm sorry to see them leaving these ranks.
A lot of victories between these two guys, actually 3 this year alone. Scott Pruitt won at Daytona and then again at Summit Point in his march to the GTO championship. Willie T. Ribbs, who is probably the winningest driver in Trans Am history, at least in terms of sheer dollars. Willie's won over $300,000 on that series. He has a victory this year himself. So the victories have been spread around this year on the GTO series. These two guys have gotten their share, and both will move on to bigger and better things next year. On to the backstretch they go, and while the situation has stabilized some, we'll take another quick timeout. 6.5 seconds separate Pruitt from Ribbs. We'll return to the Del Mar Fairgrounds in Del Mar, California for more Camel GTO racing after this. Back at Del Mar, California, the fairgrounds built by crooner Bing Crosby back before World War II. 45 days a year, this is a thoroughbred horse racing track, at least the track that sits next to the parking lots, that today are hosting thousands of horsepower in the men and machines of the IMSA Camel GTO series. And this man, Scott Pruitt, having things all his way. He took the lead on the very first lap of the race over Willie T. Ribbs, and he has held it from that time. His teammate Pete Halsmer is out of the event at the moment. Toyota of Dennis Ossie also out of the event. As things stand right now, Scott Pruitt leads, followed by Willie T. Ribbs, Greg Pickett in third, Wally Dallenbach Jr. fourth. In fifth place is P.J. Jones. Sixth is Bob Patch. Craig Gustafson seventh. Eighth, Chuck Kendall. Ninth, Perrin Henry. And 10th, Charlie Gedeke. And speaking of P.J., there he is in the fiberglass, so to speak, the number 75 car, a great open wheel racer. P.J., one of the stars of the sprint and midget car series that runs at Ascot Park, just up the highway in Gardena, California. P.J.'s dad, of course, the great Parnelli Jones, who took so many great race cars to Indianapolis and won there. Well, we've got a problem. The 10 car of Charlie Gedeke, who's been racing Porsches for 20 years, has got himself, looks like he's spun to the wall, but I don't see any obvious damage unless that's fluid on the racetrack.
I think that is, Bob, too.
Well, it's just a local yellow at this point. No, they're starting to show the yellow from the flag stand to the left of your picture there. So it looks like we will have the safety car come on course and pick up this man, number 11, Scott Pruitt.
Well, this could bring up a whole new ball game here, too. It's not only going to bunch up the field, but if Willie has been overheating his tires, this is going to be a perfect chance to let them cool down quite a bit and get back up to a proper traction.
We saw earlier that Pete Halsberg dropped out and killed his chances of moving up into second position. He's standing by now with one of our pit reporters, Ralph Shaheen.
Thank you, Bob. We're down here on the pit lane with Pete Halsberg. Pete, what happened to you out there?
Well, I was just trying to go by one of the slower cars, and I guess he just didn't see me. I pulled up beside him to go by him. I waited for several corners to make sure it was going to be careful. And I think he just decided to let me by on one side and didn't look on the other side because he just drove right over into me.
Well, as you can see, this very tight racetrack with the slower traffic coming up in front of these fast drivers is going to be the challenge here for the leaders this afternoon. Let's go back to the booth.
Okay, Ralph, and you're watching your leader, Scott Pruitt, about to be picked up by the pace car, moving slowly along the racetrack now. We're past halfway in the event. As you point out, Bill, now Willie T. Ribbs will be able to move right up to Scott's bumper.
Look at Willie just coming up alongside to say, Scotty, I'm here. Waiting to play.
Well, we saw Scotty win the first round when the green flag originally flew in this race, and now it looks like we're going to have another shot at it. And we'll see whether or not Willie can get the drop on Scott when the green flies again here at Del Mar. Scott Pruitt and the Lincoln Mercury team have a lot of changes coming up in 1989, and our Chris Economaki met with both Scott and Chris earlier. Here's the story.
I'm standing with Scott Pruitt, a man who has excelled in sedan racing in these United States, but next year we'll be seen in an Indy car. Scott, what about the transition from a heavy car like this to an Indy car? Is it going to be tough for you?
Well, you know, I've already proved racing Trans Am on Saturday, Indy cars on Sunday. At least I can make a transition back and forth, and doing the race with Dick Simon and the other two races with the Machinists Union. I think that just opened some people's eyes that showed them that a sedan driver could indeed drive an open-wheel car.
Do you think that your background in this form of racing we're going to see you in today is the right kind of background to go to IndyCar racing?
Well, I think the combination of that and all the years I've raced karts, which has been like 18 years, it just gives me a good position and a good base of experience to come off of, because there's so many drivers in Europe that started racing go-karts, you know, until they're 17, 18, 19 years old, and then moved their way into Formula One.
And you saw Scott Pruitt pulling into the pits in front of Willie T. Ribbs. There is the problem in the upper right corner of your screen. Scott at first could not get the car stopped, and then they went immediately under the hood. It looks like maybe the engine was killed. They just got it going again. They're going to send the guy back out there, but there's nothing they could do if he's got a brake problem.
Now, this is interesting. He's trying to beat the pace car down the straight, and it's going to be awfully close.
Ooh, indeed.
He just barely got by the starter at the end of the pit lane before the leading car on the track passed the start-finish line, so he can rejoin the back of this pack.
He will rejoin in the back. He's going to go like crazy, but keep in mind, if he's got brake problems, he's not going to be able to go too terribly fast. Meanwhile, Willie T. Ribbs has been in and out of the pits as well, so make your top three right now. Pickett in a Corvette, followed by Willie T. in second place. Wally Dallenbach Jr. running third. Plenty of action still to come in the Camel GTO here at Del Mar, California. We'll be right back. The pace car with lights out, and your new leader, number 2, Greg Pickett, a former Trans Am sedan champion, will lead the field down to the green flag.
And I think the car in second place right now is Willie T. Ribbs, but he is the 4th car in line there as we're watching. What you want to keep an eye out for is as the cars pull onto this front straight right here, watch for Willie T. to go to the inside. Now, watch this move. Here he goes. He's by one car. Now he wants to get up and try and catch Pickett as fast as he possibly can, and yet he's got to be careful. He is on cooling tires again.
A lot of cold tires out here on a very cool and overcast, very unseasonable day in Del Mar, California, not far from San Diego. Now you're back inside Willie T. Ribbs' car. Watches the brake lights flash in front of him. One lapped car remains between he and the leader, Greg Pickett. Only cars on the lead lap right now are Pickett, Ribbs, Wally Dallenbach Jr., and Scott Pruitt, who we saw go to the back of the pack, but he is on the lead lap. P.J. Jones in 5th position, followed by Craig Gustafson and Bob Patch in 7th position.
And there we go. Willie T. is by him. He's in second place, immediately behind Pickett. So let's watch and see if he's going to try and do the same thing. Oop, Dallenbach there got a little sideways. That's what cold tires will do. When you let them lose all of the temperature, when they get right down, they just don't want to hang on. And look at Pruitt. He, too, is rocketing up through this field.
Pruitt is absolutely tearing through this field as we take a look out the windshield of Willie T's Toyota. Scott Pruitt started at the back of the pack. He is now running right behind Willie T in second position. So Scott has passed about 6 guys on that lap. Oh, we've got a spin. The number 82 car, that's the Corvette of Bob Patch, and there's going to be a little problem getting past him in this situation.
Well, he's mobile, no damage. Excellent. That's good. That won't hold us up at all. Look at Willie T right on the tail, though.
And it's on the straightaways, headed for the turns, and under braking that Willie T is able to catch up to the heavier Corvette. He's got about a 300-pound weight advantage. Big brakes on these Toyotas.
This should be very, very interesting. For Willie will want to pass is either right here the next lap or at the end of the front straight, going into this 90-degree turn at the end of the straight. Try and use that because he is not going to out-accelerate the Corvette. But the Corvette's strength is its braking. Now look at that great move by Willie, and he did it.
Whoa, Willie
has muscled by. Beautiful piece of driving there.
Willie T going into the turn 10 complex, and I don't think that Greg Pickett was expecting Willie to come up on him so fast. I think, like you, Bill, he was looking for Willie to try and get him down here.
Just really, really outstanding piece of driving. Very forceful, yet perfectly clean. He did not even swap paint.
And now let's see what Willie T can do with clean track in front of him. Brake lights flash as Greg Pickett out of Alamo, California tries to get that normally aspirated Corvette up to speed to track him down. What a great pass by Willie T. Let's take another look at it.
Now here, as we watch Pickett come out of the corner, he's hard on the gas here, but look at Willie already trying to slingshot up the outside and set himself up into a position to outbrake. Pickett is still on the gas. Look at the front of the car, and here it's dipping down. See the back just starting to squig a little bit, and look at Willie. Flames out the turbocharger, showing he's off the gas under very hard braking, but not even a wisp of tire smoke. He hadn't locked it up. And at this point, Pickett can see him out the passenger window. Peripheral vision will pick him up. Willie is past at this point.
Boy, give a call there to Greg Pickett as well. He could have closed down on Willie T there, and we might have had a bad incident. Wide part of the racetrack for Greg to get back out of the way. Greg Pickett was the gentleman, saw that Willie T had the line, let him have it. And so Willie T is now your leader, followed by Greg Pickett, Wally Dallenbach Jr. and Scott Pruitt battling for third position. And here is that battle. 5 is young Wally Dallenbach, a former champion on the Trans Am Series. And he is being chased by Scott Pruitt in number 11.
Well, again, Pruitt is leaving the series. He is the GTO champion this year. He has got nothing to gain other than pride. He wants to win the race. What he's got to do is pass the cars immediately in front. Now, he's got 2 Corvettes before he can get a shot at the Toyota. And a real job here, too. Watch how these 2 cars compare. The Corvette's is squiggling a little bit there under braking. Watch them come out. Turbocharged 4-cylinder following that big V8.
5.5-liter V8 under Wally Dallenbach's hood, and you see they are beginning to catch up now on Pickett, so this may become a 3-car battle for second place very shortly.
I think you're going to see Pruitt. Here he goes. A shot right up the inside. He got a good run at Dallenbach's car through the very high-speed S's. That was really interesting there. The car was definitely superior on that high-speed corner.
So many ties between these 2 young drivers. Scott Pruitt driving for Jack Roush out of Livonia, Michigan. At one time when his SCCA championships were won, Wally Dallenbach Jr. also drove for Jack Roush. Then the team was known as Roush Protofab. The 2 teams split. There was a little bit of bad feeling. Dallenbach went with the Protofab faction to Chevrolet, where he won another Trans Am title, and then has come back here very much wanting to follow his father, Wally Dallenbach Sr., into the Indy cars, but it was not to be. Meanwhile, Pruitt, who stayed with Roush, has won 4 championships of his own, including 1 SCCA and 3 GTO. He will now go to the Indy cars. And in fact, he will be driving for Steve Horn, and Wally Dallenbach was fairly outspoken in his comments, saying that he was promised he would get a shot at that ride, but it never came around before Pruitt was announced as the driver. And so Wally feeling a little bit bitter. Got to be a tough moment for him as he battles now with Pruitt.
Well, it certainly is, and Wally is really working hard here to try and keep up, but is losing ground quite effectively, particularly through this series. Right here, the very fast series, look at how much ground that Pruitt was able to pick up on Pickett's car. Closed right up. What he may do is to get a good run out of this series of corners, like get tied up on Pickett's back bumper and follow him down now through this very, very fast left-hander up ahead. Let's just see if he takes a shot at him at the end of it. He wants to set up a hard braking maneuver right here. And here he goes. Nope. Whoa.
Barely alongside. He's going to hold his ground, and he makes it work.
Great piece of driving.
You called it, Bill. You called it. Scott Pruitt with the wave from a corner worker there takes over. Second position.
Look at the power slide out of that corner there. And here's a little inter-team rivalry.
Wally Dallenbach going to the outside there with an assist from the number 44 car of Russ Romer, who moved way outside, allowed Wally Dallenbach to take the outside line and get around his teammate. So we're getting all kinds of jumping around in the top four. The battle continues for muscle car supremacy at Del Mar, California. More in a moment. Welcome back to the beautiful Del Mar Fairgrounds in California. Bob Varsha, Bill Adam with you at the announce position. Chris Economaki and Ralph Shaheen along pit road. There you see the interval now between first and second as Scott Pruitt throws his car all over the racetrack, trying desperately to catch back up to Willie T. Ribbs.
Now we're going to get an interval on time here just in a moment to see what the distance is. There's first and there is second in the picture.
At the start-finish line there, just over 2 seconds separate Pruitt from Ribbs.
The Mercure is very, very impressive under braking right now. It looks really stable, and he's getting it very deep. The Corvettes have always had their strength under braking. They've been very excellent cars, and usually they're able to go deeper than anyone else into a corner. That's closer to a corner before they get on the brakes. Today, oh, and look at this. Tremendous power slides out of there. Pruitt is really spectacular through those high-speed S's.
Are you surprised here, Bill? You're familiar with those Corvettes. Everybody was saying that the normally aspirated car with V8 power was likely to walk away from these turbo machines.
I really thought they would here, because with the track being slippery, when you get your foot on a turbocharged motor and you're getting that 600 horsepower coming in, it just comes in with a bang, and it's very hard to modulate the gas. You can back off a little bit, and all you'll do is start losing boost, and you'll still be getting wheel spin. With a normally aspirated car, it's like, again, driving on snow. You can feed a little bit of power in. It's much easier to drive than the turbo cars.
And you saw one of the Roush crew members out there at the wall timing that section of the course, shaking his fist, saying, come on, Scott, the laps are running down. There's not much time left. You've got to get right up behind Willie T and shoot for that pass. You see they've got lap cars in front of them. Now things get really tricky. This is going to be a tremendous finish at Del Mar.
Well, there's about 5 laps left now, and we remember there have been some really spectacular finishes between these two in the past. Miami Grand Prix a few years ago, just an incredible fourth and punt, I think it was.
Yeah, Scott Pruitt coming into a braking area, hit hard from behind by Willie T. Ribbs, who passed on and managed to finish second in the race. Right now, Scott is behind Willie. Willie dodges Chuck Kendall off to the left of the screen. Now he's got the 01 of Perry and Henry, the hill climb ace. He moves out of the way, or takes a little bump out of the way. And now there is open track in front of Willie T. There's the view that he has.
That was just a real cut-and-thrust move right through, getting by both those slower cars, but they both did it. They're driving very decisively, making very deliberate moves, but they're using a great deal of skill. There has been no contact between these cars and any of the slower traffic. Just very, very precise driving on both drivers' parts.
Number 9 is Mr. Excitement, Willie T. Ribbs, 99, make that. Behind him, number 11, Scott Pruitt, headed for the IndyCar ranks next year. This is going to be a tremendous finish. Laps quickly running down. Willie T. spinning his car all over the racetrack. Scott Pruitt, there you saw Willie getting sideways in the Toyota. Here they come.
I don't think Pruitt will try it. Willie is far enough in advance. Pruitt wants to get right up on the tail and close up that extra car length before he takes a shot at braking. Pruitt there, he's just occupying mirrors. Again, distracting the other driver, making him lose that little bit of concentration. But do you think he's going to upset Ribbs?
We said at the top of the show, these cars will be sent to museums or maybe to junk heaps after this is over. Lincoln Mercury is going to another brand next year, and the Toyotas are going to another class of racing. So these cars are expendable, and if there are 2 guys who can waste a race car getting to the checkered flag, it is Willie T. Ribbs and Scott Pruitt. And I think they're probably enjoying this, Bill.
Oh, I'm sure this is fun. Again, they know that this is the last swan song of these cars, the last race of the year, and all the pride is on the line. They want to get to it. And in a race this short, you don't have to worry about driving fatigue. You can drive flat out as hard as you can for the entire duration of the race. You don't worry about driver fatigue. So it's not a case of, well, what am I going to be like in 20 minutes? Get your foot in it, go for it. Use all the boost and get sideways and have fun and think about Ascot Park.
From pylon to concrete and pillar to post, Willie T. Ribbs from San Jose trying to hold off Scott Pruitt from Roseville. They live barely 100 miles apart up in Northern California, and now it has come down to this, less than a car length with the laps running out in Del Mar.
Ribbs continues to drive so beautifully. He is not blocking it. What would happen? Geez, I keep seeing Scott move over there. It's almost like a fake move. He wants to try and get Ribbs' attention, but Willie is so cool.
Trying to force the mistake, perhaps?
I think, yeah, a little bit. If he can just get a little bit offline, but he can't afford to get too far off because then that's going to slow down his exit speed. And these cars look like they're so closely matched that I don't think he can afford to give away even 1 or 2 miles an hour. Now, Willie made a tiny mistake there exiting the corner. Just got a little more sideways than Scott did, and I think this will allow Scott to close back up.
You can see the trail of the tires. They're leaving rubber all the way around this racetrack, spinning the wheels, but they know the tires and the brakes and the engines don't have to last much longer, so they're asking all that they can from these 2 race cars. The 87 champions from Toyota, the 88 champions from Lincoln Mercury.
Boy, and these rear tires must be hot. They are getting on the gas as early as they can. They're running qualifying pace right now. Very fast laps.
Now, this is a timed race. This is not a race that is run to a set number of laps, so all eyes are on the flag stand each time this pair of young drivers goes by, looking to see when that curled checkered flag might be held behind the flagman's back, indicating that there is but one last lap remaining around this 1.62-mile 10-turn race course, carved from the parking lots of the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Heck, the drivers were saying it might have been carved out of an ice hockey rink by the way these cars have been acting.
God, well, Pruitt is really spectacular through those corners. He's sliding through there in the neighborhood of 100 miles an hour. The back end is getting right out, and his foot is right heavy on the gas. Doesn't lift off a bit.
Every time they hit that curve right there at that S section of S's, I wonder what would have happened if the concrete had still been there instead of the pylons.
Geez. There'd be a lot of fiberglass scattered around this place. Now, here's a chance for Scott. Willie moves over to the inside to block him. Look at the tight inside line he takes, a defensive maneuver, and that's the first one we've seen.
Tactical drift there for Willie T, but it works. He makes the Toyota stick, and Scott Pruitt has to back off and go around.
There really are only the 2 safe places. Now, Scott is wide. He'll swing it to try and get that good exit speed. Okay, a left, a right. Now, hard on the gas now, and he's got a good run at him. Here we go, down the front straight. This is the best shot he's had right now.
All right, Willie. He slides over. He did have the length, and the checkered flag has come out. The checkered flag comes out just as Scott Pruitt made his thrust, but Willie T holds him off to the line. And a great victory shared by 2 of the best young sedan drivers in America.
Just tremendous. I think that has to be the best GTO race we have seen this year. Great battle.
And once again, inside Willie T's car, and all of the corner workers will be waving to him. A salute, the traditional motorsports salute to the winner. Willie T. Ribbs from San Jose, California, picks up his 2nd victory of the year on the IMSA GTO circuit. And as Willie T. makes his way to the vehicle that will take him for a victory lap of this 1.62-mile circuit, we'll move away and come back to meet the happy winner here at the GTO Climax for 1988 from Del Mar, California. After a spectacular battle with Scott Pruitt and his Lincoln Mercury XR4 Ti, Willie T. Ribbs has won for Toyota here at Del Mar, and he's standing by now with Chris Economaki.
Willie, I think this is your biggest day in motorsports. I have never seen a more beautiful drive by anybody than you did. Coming from the back, take the lead, and then holding off that ever-challenging Scott Pruitt. And more importantly, I looked at your car. There's not a dent on it except in the roof where you did your victory dance when you got out. Congratulations. How do you look at this race today?
Chris, in the beginning, I didn't start on stickers. Everybody started on stickers, and my tires, I spun the tires all the way down the straightaway when they all went by me. It took 5 laps for the tires to start to work. So finally, I worked my way back up. But Scott was very, very tough. I mean, today you can't call anybody winning this race. It was Scott and I both won this one because he was very, very quick. And he had really good grip, and I was very lucky not to make no mistakes.
Willie, we saw different Willie T. Ribbs today at the wheel. What's come over you? I mean, you didn't move on anybody. There was no blocking, no fender bending, no wall smacking. Have you matured here?
Well, you know, like wine supposedly get better. However, you know, when you race for Dan Gurney, a legend, then you pick up good secrets and ways to drive and win without, you know, knocking all the landscape over.
Oh, great. Congratulations, Willie, and good luck next year. Let's go now down with my colleague, Ralph, and Scott Pruitt.
Thank you very much, Chris. We're standing here with Scott Pruitt, and Scott, that had to be one of the all-time greatest GTO races the fans have ever seen.
It was a great race. Unfortunately, Willie's good luck was my bad luck. We lost some sort of electrical system when the caution came out. We had to make some changes. We had to do some stuff. But by far, we had the fastest car on the course. I mean, that was proof. The guys have worked hard all season long, and
It's tough to go out that way, but you know, Willie did a superb job today. We had the best race probably of our careers together out there. My car ran phenomenal, except for that little problem, and that's unfortunate. We had to come up second, but it was a great race.
Well, let me second all of the opinions just expressed. One of the best GTO races I think I've ever seen. Bill Adam, your thoughts?
Well, really, we have just an absolutely outstanding race that was just about written in Hollywood. We're so close to it. The final thing is the attitudes by both these drivers. Not only pros on the track, but when they get off, they really, truly respect each other. Nice to see.
Well, here are the final top 5 results here at Del Mar. Willie T. Ribbs wins for Toyota, followed by Scott Pruitt for Lincoln Mercury, Wally Dallenbach Jr. and Greg Pickett in Chevy Corvettes, and in 5th place, P.J. Jones in the Mazda RX-7. We'll be right back.